One of the bigger mistakes, or one of the biggest mistakes, is not knowing how much to withdraw. Everybody, once they retire, they need to understand that the goals of managing money now is very different from what it was during the accumulation phase. When you were 29, 28, maybe you were finding it very difficult to invest and save money because you had a lot of competing requirements of money. So it meant you walked an extra mile to buy something, or to use more public transport because you wanted to save and invest money, and therefore you went to another a bank a little further away because it was giving 0.5% extra or 1% extra. You were chasing returns, so you were trying to maximize the returns by changing your asset allocation and things like that, because that extra 1%, 2% mattered to you. Now cut to your retirement. Let's say you're 70 years of age and you are now withdrawing money. You don't now need to chase that extra 1%, 2% return. Of course, 1% over 20, 30 years makes a difference. But if you have reached a stage in life when the headache of chasing and getting that extra 1% is not worthwhile, then you don't need to do it. But people find it very difficult to shift from that saving, investing to a spending mode. So here they can't ignore that 1% or 0.5% that is available. So they'll call up and say, this company is offering me 0.5% extra interest. What should I do? Right? So typically things like that. That's all fine, but managing withdrawals is not very easy. So if you think that 10% return, or 12, let's say you think you're going to get 12% return in equity permanently, right? So what happens? You think you can withdraw 10% of your portfolio. That's not true, because it's not 12% every year. It is 12%, then minus 1%, then it is a 14%, then it is a minus 32%. All these things are possible with equity. So in equity, how much to withdraw has to be decided by something called the bucket theory. I've spoken about it in very many forums, including I have my video there. You have to decide to create buckets: bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3, bucket 4, where bucket 1 is the most liquid and you withdraw only from bucket 1. Bucket 2, 3, 4 are used to fund bucket 1 as and when needed. That is the purpose of second, third and fourth buckets, right? Depending on the risk and return, you put them into different buckets and saying, okay, bucket number 3, I don't want to look for 10 years. Bucket number 2, I don't want to look for 5 years. Bucket number 1, where 0 to 5, all my requirements are there. That's what you do, and then you withdraw. If you start withdrawing totally from your portfolio without understanding whether you're withdrawing more from equity, more from debt and all that, what happens is during a bad time you might over withdraw from equity, which you should know, which is not the intention. Yes, if equity markets, currently I would think markets are doing well. In this time, should you be withdrawing from equity? It won't hurt you too badly if you withdraw from equity, because you are a retired person, you need that money. But if there's a bear market in let's talk about the Sensex, and the Sensex goes down to say 48,000 or 50,000, and that time you still insist that you will withdraw 10% or you will withdraw 10% because you get 10% return in equity or 12% return in equity, that might be a disaster. So managing knowing how much to withdraw, that's a very difficult question, and you also have to answer that only for 3 years at a time, because we don't have so much of data with us to say, okay, 4% if you withdraw you will not have a problem, like the 4% withdrawal rule in the US. That's going for a toss now, but they had that rule, right? So India, we don't know whether these rules have emerged, so we can only guess, but don't try to estimate beyond 3 years. Next 3 years you decide where and how much you want to withdraw, and that's it. So take this decision 2-3 years at a time, not more. So this is one more way of managing your withdrawals, right? So how much to withdraw, when to withdraw, from which fund to withdraw. Suppose you've been in a huge secular bull market and you've got a 60%, 70% return. It's a great time to be removing some money from equity and putting it into a liquid fund, which is the bucket number 1, so that you can withdraw. Maybe next 20 years expenses are already provided. So now you can look at your equity portfolio with more sanity, equilibrium, and saying, I don't need this money. Whatever I need is already there in bucket number 1. So this is one thing. The second one I see people making a mistake is not creating a very balanced portfolio with including international companies, right? Now, if you take the world market capitalization, 64% or maybe 62% now, it's come down a bit, would be the US markets. Now if you believe in the index, you have to believe only in the world index. So in the world index, the US is 64% and India would be 2% or 3% max. So right, so if all your 100% is in this 2-3%, you are completely missing the growth of the other parts of the world, how US, Europe, maybe parts of Korea, Japan, right, or other Southeast Asia countries. So you need to have an international portfolio. Till now it meant international normally meant buying some equity stocks or some mutual fund ETF or something which represents US. But today you have a range. You can sorry, you can put money in an index fund in the US, you can put in the managed fund, everything will get operated from here, right? You have this full range. So sit and look through, because even in the US, which is 60% at least of world economy, people insist that they should invest some money abroad to reduce the volatility and improve their returns. If it is applicable to an investor in US, it's also applicable to an investor like you and me in India. Of course, right now there are some problems with RBI, that the RBI is not allowing beyond a particular point, but largely the emphasis is to say that when you are creating a portfolio, you want to reduce volatility by including other geographies. So don't ignore those suggestions that, oh, I will not go abroad. That's all fine, but your investments can be in companies which are in many countries. So if you buy a Facebook is there in all the countries. If you buy a Microsoft, they're there in many parts of the world, right? So typically understand the need for foreign companies in your portfolio to make sure that the fund is not destabilized and you don't lose money. You don't lose money when the other parts of the world are performing and India is not performing, right? So these things will happen. So be careful. Thank you.